Welcome to Snooze and Stories. I'm your host, and together, let's unwind with a bedtime story and drift off to a restful night's sleep. This story is set in the serene hills of Munnar, a town in India, where the emerald tea plantations unfurl like delicate fabric under a misty sky. There lies a hidden garden known to only a few. Here, the timekeeper tends to trees bearing fruit that holds the laughter and the heartaches of moments long past. As Myra, a young woman burdened by grief, steps into this secret haven, she finds herself caught in a web of longing, wrestling with the realization that the past can never be truly recaptured. If you're happy in a dream, does that count? She muses, as the echoes of her childhood swirl around her like the mist enveloping the hills. This poignant tale delves into the intricate dance between memory and reality, illuminating how the moments we cherish shape our lives and the importance of embracing the beauty of the present. In a world where time grows on trees, Myra learns that love persists even in loss, guiding her toward a deeper understanding of what it means to be whole again, in the small, tender moments that define us. Let's begin. In the quiet hills of Munnar, where the tea plantations ripple like green waves under a sky that is often heavy with mist, there stood a house no one spoke about. It perched on the edge of the mountains, near a forgotten path that wound through thick forests, overgrown with ferns and tangled roots. The house itself, hidden behind ancient trees, was crumbling at the edges, like an old parchment left too long in the sun. Time-worn, it breathed in whispers, its windows coated in dust and cobwebs, its door hanging askew, as if they had forgotten how to close. This house didn't just sit in the hills. It waited. Behind it, through a rusted gate whose hinges creaked like the bending branches of the old tree, there was a garden. But not just any garden. Here, in the mist-soaked air, where the scent of the wet earth clung to everything, grew something strange. Time. Time ripened on the trees like fruits, hidden beneath the shade of sprawling mango and jackfruit trees that stretched high, their roots curling into the ground like fingers clutching secrets. The fruit, small moments from the past, glowed softly in the dim light that filtered through the canopy. Golden glimmers peeking out from behind the leaves, waiting to be found. In this place, where the mountains seemed to fold into each other like pages in a forgotten book, the timekeeper tended to the trees. He was not old, though the air around him felt ancient, like it had been here long before anyone else had. He moved slowly, not because he was weak, but because the garden demanded a certain patience. His eyes, dark and light at once, carried the weight of ages, of days gone by and lives forgotten. And the people came quietly, always quietly. Through the mist they would walk, sometimes with heavy steps, sometimes light, as if afraid to wake something sleeping in the depths of the forest. They came to Munnar, not for the tea or the hills, but for the garden, for the chance to pluck a moment from their past and carry it back with them into their dreams, to taste, just for a little while, what it was like to be whole again. One evening, as the mist clung to the earth and the hills echoed with the soft hum of crickets, a girl came to the garden. She had traveled far, through the winding roads of Munnar, past the tea pickers who moved like ghosts in the fog, their baskets heavy with leaves. Her name was Myra, though she would not have told you that. She had buried her name in the silence of too many unspoken words, forgotten it under the weight of grief she had carried for too long. When happiness is just a whisper away, how do you catch it without losing it all? She stepped through the rusted gate, its groan swallowed by the thick air, and walked into the garden. The trees whispered to each other as she passed, their leaves brushing like the soft murmur of an old tale. The timekeeper was waiting, as he always was, his eyes flickering like the dying light of day. "Why have you come?" he asked, though he already knew. She looked up, her eyes glinting with a mix of hope and regret. "To take something back," she whispered. Myra walked slowly, her fingers brushing against the fruit that hung low from the branches. The air was thick with the scent of jasmine and wet earth. She stopped by a tree whose leaves were heavy with dew, her eyes drawn to a small glowing fruit nestled among the branches. It was warm in her hand, golden like the first light of dawn breaking over the hills. And it pulsed softly, as if alive. She closed her eyes and plucked it from the branch. A small moment, a laugh, the sound of her mother's voice calling her name on a summer's day long ago, in a time when the world had felt wide open and full of possibilities. She could feel her mother's hand, warm and soft, pressed against her as they ran barefoot through the fields of marigolds. It wasn't a grand moment, just a day, but it was everything. "Be careful," the timekeeper said softly, his voice like the rustling leaves. "Time is delicate. The past is not meant to be lived in." But Myra didn't hear him. Or maybe she didn't want to. She had come for this, to take something back, to feel again what she had lost. That night, as the mist rolled down the hills and the air grew cool, she slipped into sleep, and in her dream, she was back in that golden moment. The warmth of her mother's hand in hers, the sunlight on her face. But the dream stretched, pulling at the edges of its memory, and soon the laughter faded. The sunlight dimmed. The past, even in dreams, wasn't meant to be held on to for too long. When Myra woke, the memory was still there, but it was changed. It didn't shine the way it had before. The sound of her mother's laugh, once so clear, was now distant, like an echo that had lost its way. The timekeeper's garden, hidden in the misty hills of Munnar, stood unchanged. The trees continued to bend beneath the weight of time, their fruit glowing softly in the dim light. And the timekeeper watched over them, knowing that people would come again and again, seeking what they could never truly hold. Because in this secret garden, where time grew on trees, the past could be tasted, but never